Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Ritual, Creativity, and Art, Unlocking the Magic in Your Home. In this global conference, we are bringing together expert speakers to share their insights on well-being, rituals, energy systems, holistic spaces, and art. Together, we will explore how our homes can become both foundations for personal and global transformation. By deepening our self awareness and creative power, we can align our spaces with our true essence, elevate our energy, and feel inspired to positively influence our surroundings. This journey is all about empowering ourselves to transform our reality, live mindfully, and contribute to a more conscious and harmonious world. I am María Isabel Barrero, your host and guide for this event, and I am so pleased to be joined by Rachael Grochowski today. Welcome, Rachael. I'm so delighted to have you here.
Great. I'm so happy to be here. I always love talking about these topics.
Thank you. So, Rachael has over 30 years of experience. It is an esteemed architect, designer, thought leader, and keynote speaker at the forefront of conversations about designing spaces that truly matter. She goes beyond aesthetics, advocating that design can evoke calm, interconnectedness, presence, and gratitude, asserting that design is spiritual. Rachael's multifaceted background as an architect, designer, traveler, seeker, and yoga practitioner informs her mission, guiding others towards environments that anchor them in their histories while inspiring growth towards the future. Rachael holds a Master of Architecture and Bachelor of Arts in Architectural History from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and it is a licensed architect and designer. Her studio, RHG Architecture Plus Design, has garnered acclaims for its residential, hospitality, commercial, and cannabis projects, each reflecting a spiritual evolution towards collective care. As a Global Wellness Institute ambassador, Rachael actively promotes GWI's mission to empower wellness worldwide, and her work has prominently featured in Interiors Aspire, Architectural Digest, Interior Design, and other leading publications. Prior to launching RHG Architecture Plus Design, Rachael contributed to several notable design firms, including T. Haney Design, NYC, S. Russell Groves, and Des Scene in Atlanta as Director of Design. The scope of her projects range from five-star restaurants such as Lafitte in Kuala Lumpur's Shangri-La Hotel to the flagship Greenhouse Spa in New York City. Outside of the studio, you can often find Rachael making art and objects, practicing and studying yoga, and experiencing nature. Rachael, it's fantastic to have you with us, and I look forward to diving into today's conversation. Design is spiritual, a philosophy of design and life. But first, before we dive in our conversation, would you mind sharing with us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. That was a mouthful for you as far as the bio. So you did share a lot about my whole path here. I guess from the point of deciding to become an architect, for me, I would say I always I was aware of the experience I was having in spaces when I was a child. And although I didn't actually at the time understand this concept of architecture, of buildings, I just kind of understood the experience of feeling, whether I was in nature or in a building or in a specific shape. And so that led me to trying to find a career that supported this idea, or that I could take this idea, or this thing that was really important and prevalent in my childhood, and into my future, into my career. Somehow I knew that it would keep me grounded, and I didn't totally understand. At the time, I didn't understand how important it was. And even when I became an architect, I'm not sure I was putting the pieces together of basically what our conversation is today.
Well, thank you so much. So I'm going to start with the first question. Design is spiritual, is a core principle of yours. Can you share what this means to you and how it informs your work?
Yes. So design is spiritual came about, first of all, it almost just fell out of my mouth. Uh, I had been doing, and so I want to talk about that, and then I'm going to go into like, what does that mean, right? So again, I mentioned how I was always experiencing spaces as a child, and that as I found this idea of a career in architecture, I obviously did my studies, started practicing, and at the same time, like beside that, I was um, continuing my practices of yoga, my study of wisdom, my understanding of nature. And it was like there were these two separate things happening. And I couldn't decide at some point, it was like they were both growing, right? And I thought, I'm not 100% in on either one of them. So they're both growing, they're both becoming more significant in my life, they're more important. And do I have to choose one and let go of the other? What does that mean? And then I woke up one day and I realized they were actually coming together. They were not separating, and that they actually were the same thing. And I started thinking about the history of architecture, and that the foundation. Like originally, structures were about protecting us from the elements. But when architecture became an art, it was really about getting closer to God, whatever that meant for you. So whether it was uh, a stupa or a cathedral, it really, or even a cave for meditation, like it was about giving ourselves up to God, the reverence of God, and whatever God means to you. And then I started to realize that as an industry, as a profession, we had lost our way. We had gotten trapped in this idea that it was like an economic decision. It was no longer an expression of love or an expression of unity or community, which ultimately, when I started to, and so as I was speaking about it, it literally just came out of my mouth that design is spiritual. Once that happened, I started to define, what does that actually mean? And so for me, that means, again, interconnectedness. So if you think about a building, a structure, it could also be a piece of furniture. You could actually take any object and bring it down to how we're all interconnected. How many people, how many hands, how much love, how many ideas had to go into, a piece of furniture is an easier one than a building because it's fewer people, right? But somebody had to think about it, find a need, right? Then they had to design it. They had to either make it themselves or find somebody to make it. They had to get the materials. Somebody had to get the materials from the warehouse to the place they're building it. You could just go on and on and on and on and spend half an hour talking about all the people who went into this one little piece, right? So I see architecture and design as an expression of that interconnectedness. One can't do their job without the other. And that is ultimately life, right? So interconnectedness, the subtle energy and the sensory nature of architecture and design. So I talked about that a little bit when I spoke about myself being a child and having these experiences, whether it was stepping down into a pit and being aware that at that moment in time, it was suddenly much more intimate conversation. We were no longer, sort of loosely moving about, right? You were held, contained. And so when I started to realize and that architecture, when used appropriately, is about shifting the energy in ways that either support or harm your day-to-day life, right? Uh, Nature as a sacred element. So nature, we obviously are nature. I think maybe even 5 years ago, saying that would be like, what do you mean we are nature? No, we are nature. We are not separate from nature. We are not separate from the trees. We are not separate from the squirrels. We are not separate from the bears. We are all nature. And understanding that because we are part of nature, we need to create moments of reverence. And when we use the natural elements, we need to uh, understand what the earth or nature is giving to us as a gift. It is, again, it's an exchange. And then and other points of how shapes and three-dimensional shapes and two-dimensional shapes and color, how all of these things are have the ability to create relationship, so unity or intimacy or community, and it can also create separation. I was just watching a little tidbit. I was just watching this documentary about Cabrini Green, which people may or may not know about, but it was a housing affordable housing, I don't think we called it that at the time, complex in Chicago. And it was looking at like how it did not support the people living there and how it created separation. And you look at like the history over time where, again, architecture was about unity, whether it was a cathedral, a town center. And then you look at things like Cabrini Green, where it was about separation. And then it's a perfect example. Those two side by side are perfect examples um, of how architecture design, urban planning can actually affect how we are with each other, how we are with ourselves, and how we are in community.
Thank you so much for all the insights. It's so inspiring. And I truly believe also that design is spiritual and that we are connected somehow with other wisdom that comes alive through design. And yeah, it's just very powerful. So like talking about design, how do you see ritual and design together?
Ritual is a choice. Seeing our lives as ritual is a choice. I think it's something that, at least in the American culture, we have left behind. And the rituals that what we see as rituals are like these stripped away, kind of simplistic and overly material based moments. And what my call to action as using design as a using design to support these rituals is an invitation on how to live in your experience in your home or your work environment or your hospitality, whatever the environment is. And I think about like in a kitchen, when a kitchen is designed in a way that supports fresh foods, encourages you to cook, encourages you to come together in your family to cook together and really be in communal environments, that then it becomes a ritual. And I think about like I just we had, I guess it's now a couple of weeks ago, but our American Thanksgiving, and we were all together. In some families, one person does all the cooking. In other families, they come together and they cook together. In our family, we all come together and we all cook together, and it becomes a ritual because there again is an exchange, a reverence for each other's talents, each other's skills, um, and the fresh food that you're delivering. Other places are, the ritual of the bath. And so it's not just a tub, right? Like you create spaces for whether there's platforms for candles or to hold any sort of salts, or you set up the environment that reminds you that you can go and not just bathe, but nurture yourself, whether it's a tea center, or in some cases, we're actually designing ritual spaces. So it could be a yoga room or a meditation space, and ultimately having an altar. Uh, then there are other things that we do that are also rituals that are not so much about the end product, but we often invite our clients to, during the construction of their home, write an intention in the structure of the home. So before the drywall goes up, what do you wish? Put some wishes in this wall or on this floor so that it's kind of breathes with the building. It becomes part of it. And ultimately, like I believe that all of the memories and all the experiences that happen over time in a space live in the structure of the building. So if then you can add the layer of like, I wrote this, it's really special. Somebody uncovers it later and they're like, oh my God, that's it's so interesting, so cool. So those are ways that we like to invigorate the concept of ritual within our spaces and within the process of our projects.
Oh, that is beautiful, that process that you just share about writing your intentions or your desires in your own place, because it can become like a spell, and it's again like the power of the energy that we put behind things. And that's really like the ritual, no? It doesn't really need to be like a very sophisticated action, but it's just like the mindful intention of an act and what we put behind energetically. So I think that's so beautiful. And
The other thing I think about ritual is the relationship you have with your client is also ritual, right? Like if you're approaching your client from this idea of who, tell me who you are. You're creating like a sacred contract. Tell me about your family. You know, what are the things that make you feel good? What are the things that uh really make you like give you a bad memory? It could be like the color purple, right? Like you never know what it's going to be. And I think that too is a bit ritualistic. And we've actually I started talking about even starting our meetings with a singing bowl, because I think that, when you, again, that's part of like living life through ritual. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you for your share. I believe that too is very important to know who your clients are in order for us to really like serve and be a channel for them to bring to life what they really have in their hearts, and and to make it like in where it's a really all purpose and intentional work, with energetic support and true and really clean relationships. So, yeah, that's beautiful. And so, how do you incorporate nature and biophilia into designs to create spaces that feel alive and nurturing.
Nature is always this, there's this balance, right? Like, and I mean, this is true, it's true about any, I guess, texture, but um, you have to have the balance has to be such that you actually see it, right? So when we bring nature in, there are lots of ways. Like one might be a framed view out to a tree that's planted right outside this, maybe it's a full height window. And that's like a way to connect to nature. You have this tunnel vision that's kind of bringing you to attention in that moment. And you suddenly see uh, maybe it's misty outside and that trees leaves are changing color. And suddenly you remember like how you're just a small part of this much bigger ex existence, right? So that's the importance of it, right? Other ways, it's about the telling the stories of nature. So I often talk to clients about the countertops in their kitchen. And instead of just like going with them to select a countertop or showing it to them, I start to talk about all the minerals and the elements that went into making that specific stone. And kind of pointing out to them, like, look at the movement here. Like, wonder what happened in history that made all of a sudden this like these elements break apart, or maybe it looks like it's moving sand or moving water within the stone. And so it's calling attention to the elements that made the elements and also reminding them about the amount of time that nature took to create this beauty for us. Again, it's a reverence, building a reverence for not just myself and my team as designers, but for the client and the user. And if it's in a restaurant or if it's in a hospitality space, again, showcasing those elements in a way that makes somebody pause and remember that they're just a small part. I love when we use wood to be able to express the grain, the natural grain of the wood, the end grain in particular, because again, it's like a map of history, right? Every ring being a year, and like, well, why are these two rings so close together, and why is this so wide? That must have been a rainy year. So again, it's we bring in nature and biophilia through the materials and through views, large open doors so that you can easily move in and out. Where we are located and a lot of our work is it's in Montclair, New Jersey, and it's we've got a winter here, right? So that idea that even when you're inside, you feel like you're outside, you haven't forgotten that you are part of it is what we try to do. And it might be that the front of the house is a little more solid and the back of the house opens up to the garden. Or maybe there's a lot more transparency throughout the house. It really depends on the setting. But it calls you to move through the space. I was just on a call this morning. It's so great that he said this with a client who was saying the house that we designed keeps them in action because they always want to move to see what the experience looking outside feels like at different parts of the house. And that's how we integrate, this idea of biophilia and nature.
I really appreciate that idea that you bring of honoring the materials and how they remind us also like of nature and the presence of the materials, in this moment on the world where we get everything done and we don't realize what is behind things and how they are made and the structure, like the structural materials of them. So bringing value to that, I love it because we can all do that with what we have in our homes and honoring like the materials that we have from nature within our spaces. Um, So also, I would like to ask you, how can incorporating sustainable and mindful design choices in our homes can support our wellness?
There's a lot of different approaches. My approach is that our homes, our spaces should create a sense of calm in that our outdoor environment, our urban environments, right, or even our personal activity is very abundant. So we're moving at a fast pace, in other words. And our home should be our sanctuary. And when we create spaces that are a sanctuary, to me, that means we breathe easier, our blood pressure drops, we feel safe. The air is clean, the water is clean. Again, we're connected to nature. We sleep better. We we're able to pause in these types of spaces. So I used to talk about this all the time that aesthetically, if everything in the space is beautiful, you actually don't see any of it. So it's picking and choosing the elements that you want to highlight to create in your space so that when you turn and you see that beautiful vase, you stop and you pause and you're like, wow, that vase is just so beautiful. I love it so much. And as soon as you've done that, you've slowed down your breathing, you've slowed down your thinking, you've given yourself a moment that will ultimately likely turn into creativity. And you start to be able to connect to those who are with you in a different way, and even yourself. So to me, our environments affect our wellness by supporting those causes, those, uh, I guess I want to say, those elements in our life that are nurturing and that ultimately is about wellness. I mean, when I think about sustainability, like a lot of people know sustainability as a material element, but I don't think that's it. Like sustainability is time, economic, uh, cultural, uh, environmental, and it's a much bigger piece than I think we often think of. And I was reading something, I don't know, I guess it was yesterday, the day before. It said something about regenerative versus sustainable. And I think maybe that's the key. I think maybe that's what I'm thinking, is that these are things that are, when you put all the pieces together, it's regenerative because we're regenerating like our own wellness, right? Like we're propagating our own well-being by these types of nurturing elements. And I think we're so interested in the science of it right now. But the truth of the matter is we already know. We already know. If we slow down enough to listen, we already know.
Yeah, also about like making our choices, no? The act of the choices that we make if we stop and listen to our inner wisdom and have peace with the decisions that we make daily, we are maybe able to take better decisions, not just for me, but for everyone in the world. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
So, Rachel, why do you think it's important to work with our homes in these catalyzing times?
I mean, that's a perfect next question, really, right? Because we're just seeing a lot of separation, lack of truth, um, aggression, anger, right? Like all of these things, stability. And in yoga, we talk about you build the pose from the ground up. So you build the pose from your feet, and then it moves throughout your body. I don't think a stable community can exist if we don't start with our own body, right? And our own body starts with our own space. So it's completely connected. And I say that, and part of me thinks that, like, what does that mean right now? Because, and frankly, a lot of people think that they are addressing their own home, whether their home, it's their home, like their physical home, or whether it's their spiritual home, or whether it's their, uh, you know, body, their own body home. It feels like they believe that they're addressing it, but I'm not, that there's like this piece in here that I don't really understand what's happening, but what I do know is we have to build it from the bottom up, and we have to authentically, truthfully build it from the bottom up. And maybe it's that truth point that I think is why we're so unstable right now. And I don't, I sure hope we can sort it out.
Well, thank you so much. Um, Also, I maybe didn't mention it before, but I would like to ask you or a little bit about your company because I noticed that you really empower women working and it's like a business that is really empowering women. So just if you have few words for us to share about that, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. I mean, this is not an easy industry as a woman. And, even early in my career, when I first started out in Chicago, and I worked with four other men, and uh, all the contractors were men. And I had an experience where luckily some people were listening to me, but I had like a contractor architect relationship that was like this. Ultimately, it escalated to the level where the contractor, by his company's requirement, had to go to anger management classes. And that's effectively the majority of the experience that I had for maybe the first 8 years of my career, including moments where, I think it's really easy for male contractors to blame female architects and designers for mistakes, because oftentimes the clients are also male, and there's like a solidarity that happens. And quite honestly, like, I wanted to create an environment where we could empower each other, where women could stand behind each other and help each other figure out how to address or language the conversation, uh, almost like through purity. I always go back to the values of yoga. So whether it's like doing, do you need to say it, right? Like, is this necessary? Is it true? Is it right? So you go through these questions, and that's the way you manage the conversations with the contractors, with clients as well. And through using these types of conversations, which ultimately that sort of philosophy is much more well received among women, but also it allowed me to create a really strong female core. And also, I think another part of empowering women was that, we all have many roles in this life. Women even more than I think men, at whether we're, daughters or sisters or mothers, uh, we have this additional role of caring, and it's hard to stay in the industry for a long period of time and continue to work because you might have to be here. You have to be in two places at once often. And so when I started hiring people, I wanted to have that kind of flexible space that could support and understand that this is true. It over time has gotten somewhat more difficult, um, only because, our whole industry is not as flexible. And so as we've gotten bigger, I mean, we still are predominantly women. It's been more difficult because the demands of the industry and the speed at which the demands of the industry exist require a lot of attention and time. And so most people, so anyway, so we try to sort of partner and pair the best we can so that we've got continuity on projects, even if like maybe somebody works 4 days or maybe they have a couple days that are shorter or whatever it is. But it's an important value to me because we really do have many roles and many responsibilities and also times of our lives. Sometimes when your kids are younger, you need more flexibility. When they're older, yeah, like you just got to be home for dinner, right? So, but I think it's an important value, and I think feminine energy also creates it is more I don't know, it's more feeling like the type of architecture and design that we do is about the feeling. And so I want to have people on our team. There's so many layers to it, who understand, who are connected to how they feel, right? That connection, that like acknowledgement. And we certainly have had men on our team too who are able to do that and do have one men on our team right now. So I think all those aspects of it.
Well, thank you so much for giving that opportunity for many women because I truly believe also that this industry is male predominant and is a hard environment. And I also believe that women, we have a lot to give and put it out. And our role in the construction of society is very strong from our families out. And that amount of roles that we have to juggle in a parallel mode at all times. So it's very beautiful to see a company that empower women and believe in this feminine energy, creating new spaces with values such as love and good communication and the feelings and the emotions behind everything. So yeah, that's
One of my friends who is from the Maasai tribe in Africa told me that in her culture, the women have always been the architects and the builders. And that made sense to me.
totally,
Everything that you just said. Yeah. Yeah.
totally, that's beautiful. I need to speak to your friend.
Mhm, mhm.
So, Rachel has a unique gift to offer, the winners giveaway. So, it's two free 1 hour consults and one free design is spiritual wellness and intention cards. The details about how to win these gifts will be also posted below the description of this video. but Rachel will be giving these gifts to three people that are highly interested in winning these gifts and contact her. So we will have her information. But Rachel, would you like to share anything else about this free gift and or your cards?
Absolutely. So the 2 hour consultation, the two 1 hour consultations can be anything you want. We can talk about your space. We can talk about a project that you're interested in. We can talk about the philosophy. Uh, it's a Zoom call. The design of spiritual cards, and I did not plan this, but I actually have one like sitting here right now, a deck on my desk. They're design a deck of cards that are really the full reminders about the philosophy of intentional living through the lens of design. There's a lot of pieces, a lot of bits of wisdom in here. Not all of it is necessarily directly from me. There are a couple of quotes in here. But I developed this set kind of as I was going through my own uh, evolution into design as spiritual. And I wanted to share it with people. So that's why we decided to give away a set. You could kind of use them daily, just kind of open the deck and pull a card. You can set them out and do kind of a reading. There's lots of different ways to use them, but they're just kind of a fun reminder about the value of life, the value of design, and the value of intentional living.
Oh, beautiful. I want to win that one. So, Rachel, where can our audience go to learn more about your work and connect with you if they want to?
So we are, our website is rhgdesign.com, and we are on Instagram at rhgdesign, and we're also on YouTube. To be honest, now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm like, is it RH? It must be RHG Design or Architecture and Design, where we also have quite a bit of content as what video content as well. And those are our spots.
And I see you also pretty actively on LinkedIn.
I
So,
am actually really unusually active on LinkedIn. That's true. Yes. And that's my name, Rachel Grochowski. That's where I keep everything. We do have a lot of activity, and do get around doing speaking, and I do get around doing speaking and conferences, etc. So I always love to have people to talk about these philosophies with.
well, Rachel, thank you so much. I deeply appreciate the knowledge and insights you have shared with us today. And it's been honestly an inspiring conversation. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone who joined us, and have a wonderful day. And we will see you at the next session.
Thank you so much. It's been really lovely. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel.